Stephen Bunting. I'm the People's Champion.
Stephen Bunting went from being darts' beloved People's Champion to public enemy #1 in the span of a single tournament. These are the moments that define a career, when the crowd that once lifted you up suddenly turns against you. His story is one of the most dramatic character arcs in modern darts, a journey from BDO domination to PDC struggle, from mental health battles to breakthrough success, and finally, to a spectacular fall from grace that exposed the dark side of social media fame. Stephen Paul Bunting was born on April 9, 1985, in Fazakerley, a working-class suburb of Liverpool. Like many future dart stars, his journey began in the local pub, the Coppelhouse and Holy Name Social Club, where a teenage Bunting first picked up tungsten darts. What set him apart wasn't just his natural talent, but his lightning-fast throwing action that would later earn him the nickname The Bullet. By 18, Bunting had already made his debut at the BDO World Championship. This was a different era in darts, when the BDO still held prestige and Lakeside was where careers were made. Bunting quickly established himself as a force, winning the World Youth Masters and British Teenage Open in 2001. Followed by the WDF Europe Youth Cup in 2002. But it was in 2012 and 2013 that Bunting truly announced himself to the darting world. He captured back-to-back World Masters titles, a feat achieved by only Eric Bristow, Bob Anderson and Martin Adams before him. More impressively, he became the first player in history to retain the title without dropping a single set, demolishing world #4 Darryl Fitton's 6-0 in the semi-final and world #2 James Wilson's 7-0 in the final. January 12, 2014, the date that changed everything. At just 28 years old, Stephen Bunting stood on the Lakeside stage facing Alan Norris in the BDO World Championship final. The pressure was immense. This was his moment to join the elite. Bunting delivered, winning 7-4 and claiming the £100,000 winner's prize. He was the world champion, the king of the BDO. But Bunting had bigger dreams. 10 days later, he made the decision that would define the rest of his career, accepting a PDC tour card. It was a massive gamble. In the BDO, he was a champion. In the Professional Darts Corporation, he would be starting from scratch against the world's best players. The transition was brutal. The PDC was a different beast entirely, faster, more competitive, with prize money that dwarfed the BDO, but standards that were unforgiving. Bunting quickly discovered that being a BDO world champion meant little in this new environment. His early PDC years were marked by frustration and near misses. In 2015, he reached the World Championship quarterfinals at Alexandra Palace, losing an epic 5-4 battle to Raymond van Barneveld that had the Ali Pali crowd on their feet. Van Barneveld, one of the sport's legends, called Bunting one of the best after that match. It seemed like breakthrough was imminent. Instead, came years of disappointment. The 2017 World Championship was particularly painful. Bunting missed 7 match darts in a first-round defeat that left him questioning everything. The defeats mounted, confidence evaporated, and with it went his form. He was trapped in the cruelest of cycles where defeats led to lost confidence, and lost confidence led to more defeats. Only a few years ago, Bunting was exactly that, a solid but unspectacular player who seemed destined to remain on the periphery of darting's elite. The man who had once dominated the BDO was becoming an afterthought in the PDC, struggling with his checkout percentage and 3-dart average. But Bunting refused to give up. Recognizing that his struggles were as much mental as physical, he sought help from sports psychologists and a hypnotherapist. This wasn't just about technique or practice routines, this was about rebuilding himself from the ground up. The work was intensive and often painful. Bunting had to confront the demons that were holding him back, the self-doubt that had crept in after years of disappointment. Slowly, methodically, he began to rebuild not just his game, but his confidence. There was another crucial change. Bunting switched from 12-gram tungsten darts to 18-gram tungsten darts with target darts. It might sound trivial, but for a professional dart player, equipment changes can be career-defining. The heavier barrel weight completely transformed his throwing rhythm. As Bunting later explained, "I never stopped believing in myself, and I made the right decision by switching from 12-gram darts to 18-gram darts. It feels right." By 2021, the transformation was beginning to show. Bunting reached his first PDC World Championship semi-final a decade after his BDO triumph. He was back in the conversation, back among the elite, his 3-dart average climbing back to world-class levels. But it was 2024 that truly marked his renaissance. In February, at the Marshall Arena in Milton Keynes, Bunting finally broke through. The Masters had eluded him for years, but this time was different. In the final, he faced Michael van Gerwen, arguably the greatest player of the modern era. Van Gerwen was the heavy favourite, but Bunting was inspired. The final score read 11-7 to Bunting. After a decade of PDC frustration, he was finally a major champion. The £275,000 winner's cheque was the biggest payday of his career, but more important was the psychological breakthrough. He could win at the highest level. What happened next transformed Bunting from successful player to cultural phenomenon. Always naturally charismatic, he began embracing social media in a way few dart players had before. His TikTok videos went viral, his YouTube channel gained over 100,000 subscribers, and the hashtag Let's Go Bunting Mental became a rallying cry for his growing army of fans. His walk-on music, Sia's Titanium, became one of the most recognizable in darts. When those opening notes hit, crowds would erupt. Children wore Bunting shirts, fans traveled across Europe to watch him play, and social media exploded whenever he stepped to the oche. Sky Sports and the PDC took notice. They began referring to him as the People's Champion, a title that perfectly captured his appeal. Unlike some of the sport's more polished stars, Bunting remained refreshingly authentic. He'd chat with fans in Tesco, take photos in pubs, and share intimate moments of his family life online. The 2025 season saw Bunting reach new heights. He made another World Championship semi-final, losing 6-1 to teenage sensation Luke Littler, but cementing his place among the sport's elite. He was selected for the Premier League Darts, the sport's most prestigious regular competition, and while he struggled initially, he turned things around with a stunning victory in Berlin. The statistics from 2025 tell the story of a player at his peak. He ended the PDC Pro Tour season with the highest 3-dart average of all players at 99.02. He became only the third player in PDC history to win at least 2 Players' Championship events, 2 European Tour titles, and 2 World Series of Darts events in a single year. Only Luke Littler and Michael van Gerwen had achieved this feat before. His highest televised average came in the Bahrain Darts Masters quarter-final against Chris Dobey, where he recorded 111.33, one of the standout performances in World Series history. He won 6 tournaments throughout the year, reached 10 finals, and earned over £600,000 in prize money. His checkout percentage was among the best on tour. Bunting's fanbase grew exponentially. He was particularly popular in Germany, where crowds would chant his name and create an atmosphere unlike anything else in darts. As he put it, "The fans are phenomenal. I've often said I have more fans in Germany than in England, and every time we play in Germany again, that feeling is confirmed and people chant my name." Behind the scenes, Bunting was dealing with significant personal challenges. In November 2024, his second son Theo was born, just 2 days before the Grand Slam of darts. His wife Keela gave her blessing for him to compete, but the stress of new parenthood combined with the pressure of professional competition was immense. Bunting also faced criticism for his Premier League selection despite his success. He finished bottom of the table after losing his first 8 matches, leading some pundits to question whether he deserved his place. Former professional Chris Mason was particularly vocal, saying, "He did his good work mostly at the start of the year, but that was basically undone by the Premier League." As 2025 drew to a close, Bunting's form took a concerning dip. The World Grand Prix, European Championship, Grand Slam of Darts, World Match Play performances, tournament after tournament ended in early defeat. The man who had dominated the first half of the year was struggling when it mattered most. Then came the 2025/26 World Championship, and with it, the moment that would change everything. After a scrappy 3-1 first-round victory over Thibault Tricol, Bunting faced the media. The win hadn't been pretty, but he was through, and the crowd had been behind him as always. It was then that he made the comment that would destroy his reputation. "I'm Stephen Bunting, I'm the people's champion," he declared. "They're all going to go Bunting mental no matter what happens. I believe I've got the best fan base in darts. I've got the best social media in darts. The only thing I'm lacking is the World Championship, and it's coming this year." On the surface, it seemed harmless enough. Sky Sports and the PDC had been calling him the people's champion for months. But something about the way Bunting said it, the confidence, the assertion, the claim that the World Championship was coming, rubbed people the wrong way. Social media exploded. The very platforms that had built Bunting's reputation now turned against him. One fan wrote on X, "If you're proclaiming you're the people's champ, I can guarantee you're not. You're just jump-up P who's let it get to their head, buzzing for you to play someone decent and bottle it like always." The narrative shifted overnight. Where once Bunting had been seen as humble and relatable, now he was portrayed as arrogant and entitled. The success, critics claimed, had gone to his head. The people's champion had crowned himself, and the people were not impressed. Bunting tried to defend himself, explaining that he hadn't proclaimed the title but had been given it by Sky and the PDC. "I was dubbed it by Sky/PDC and the media. I'm working very hard behind the scenes and I show my fans my persona and let them into my life, so I think that's why they have taken to me so kindly." But the damage was done. The internet had made up its mind. 3 days later, at the emotional press conference, the human cost became clear. Bunting broke down in tears as he addressed the online abuse he'd received. "I look at social media, and I've had some stick. I made a comment in the media saying I was the people's champion, but that was literally a comment that was from what Sky have said, what the PDC have said. It wasn't me saying I'm the people's champion." The sight of a 40-year-old man crying because of social media comments was jarring. This was the price of fame in the modern age, where every word is scrutinized, every emotion dissected, and where the distance between adoration and hatred can be measured in a single ill-judged comment. December 27th, 2025. Alexandra Palace, third round of the World Championship. Stephen Bunting, seeded 4th in the world, faced James Hurrell, ranked 63rd. On paper, it should have been routine. In reality, it became the night that validated every critic. Bunting took an early 2-1 lead with stunning checkouts of 161 and 121, showing flashes of the brilliance that had made him a star. But Hurrell, feeding off the crowd's energy and his opponent's visible tension, fought back relentlessly. The 25-year-old from Northern Ireland was playing the match of his life, his checkout percentage near perfect. As the match swung back and forth, Bunting's celebrations after good shots drew criticism from his opponent. "Stephen was celebrating like he won the game at times, and I worked off that. I felt when he gave it the big one over to his family and friends, I was quite happy with that," Hurrell said afterward. In the end, Hurrell won 4-3, taking 18 of the 30 legs and averaging over 98 to secure one of the tournament's biggest upsets. Bunting, the highest seed to fall, was out in the third round. The man who had declared the World Championship was coming this year was heading home before the new year. No 9-dart finish could save him now. The aftermath was brutal. Social media lit up with "I told you so" posts and mocking memes. The phrase "bottle it like always" proved prophetic. Bunting's prediction that fans would go Bunting mental came true, but not in the way he'd intended. But worse was to come. 2 days after his elimination, Bunting revealed on social media that the abuse had extended beyond him to his family. His 12-year-old son Tobias had become a target for online trolls, receiving hateful messages that left the family devastated. Stephen Bunting says his family have been hurt by social media hate directed at his son following his exit from the World Darts Championship, reported Sky Sports. The revelation shocked even Bunting's critics. Whatever their feelings about the player, targeting a child crossed every line of decency. Posting on X, Bunting wrote about the additional upset caused by abuse directed at Toby, who had featured in social media videos alongside his father. The boy, who had been cheering his dad from the crowd, was now receiving messages that no child should ever see. Adding to the pressure was the behind-the-scenes drama Bunting had been dealing with. "I think people don't see what went on behind the scenes before the Worlds. On Christmas Day, I was in A&E with Theo until 2 a.m, he revealed. His infant son's health scare had added another layer of stress to an already difficult situation. Despite everything, the PDC announced that Bunting had retained his place in the 2026 Premier League. It was a controversial decision that sparked fresh debate about whether popularity should trump recent performance in professional darts. Critics were scathing. Danny Noppert, who many felt deserved the spot, was overlooked despite a strong season. Wayne Mardle voiced his surprise at Bunting's inclusion, saying, "I'm slightly surprised at Stephen Bunting. He's had a decent enough year, but not as good as some, in my opinion." Chris Mason was even more direct. "He did his good work mostly at the start of the year, but that was basically undone by the Premier League. And if you look at his last 5 TV tournaments, it just wasn't good enough. Do I think he should be in? No." Bunting defended his selection vigorously. "I can't tell you how pleased I am to have been selected for this year's Premier League. I accept the back end of the year didn't go too well, but with 6 tournament wins in 2025, I would have been gutted not to have been selected." He pointed to his statistics: 6 titles, 10 finals, one of the highest tournament averages on the Players' Championship circuit. "It was the best season I have had on the PDC since I moved from the BDO, and the fan base is continuing to build." But when asked about the People's Champion controversy, Bunting was definitive. "Don't mention the People's Champion, please." The man who had built his brand on being the People's Champion no longer wanted to be associated with the title. It was a sad end to what should have been the crowning achievement of his career. So what went wrong? How did Stephen Bunting go from beloved underdog to polarizing figure in the span of a single tournament? Part of it was the curse of social media success. Bunting had built his brand on accessibility and authenticity, but those same qualities made him vulnerable when the tide turned. The platforms that had elevated him became weapons against him. There's also the fickleness of sports fandom. Success often brings scrutiny, and fans can be quick to turn on those they perceive as getting too big for their boots. Bunting's confidence, once seen as charming, was reinterpreted as arrogance once he started struggling. The timing of his comments couldn't have been worse. Making bold predictions about winning the World Championship after an unconvincing first-round performance set him up for a fall. When that fall came against James Hurrell, it seemed to validate every criticism. But most importantly, Bunting's story reflects the broader challenges of modern celebrity. In an age where every word is recorded, every emotion broadcast, and every mistake amplified, the margin for error is razor-thin. The online abuse targeting his son crossed every line of decency and showed how toxic modern fan culture can become. That a 12-year-old boy received hate messages because of his father's comments in a post-match interview is a damning indictment of social media culture. Stephen Bunting's journey from BDO world champion to PDC star to social media phenomenon to public enemy is one of the most dramatic character arcs in modern sport. It's a story of triumph over adversity, of mental health struggles overcome, of breakthrough success achieved against the odds. But it's also a cautionary tale about the dangers of modern fame, the fickleness of public opinion, and the toxic nature of online discourse. The man who was once the people's champion learned the hardest lesson of all. In the age of social media, the crowd that lifts you up can just as quickly tear you down. As Bunting prepares for another Premier League campaign in 2026, he faces a difficult road ahead. Can he reclaim his status as a fan favourite? Can he prove his critics wrong and justify his controversial selection? Most importantly, can he protect his family from the darker side of fame while still pursuing his dreams? The answers to those questions will define the next chapter of Stephen Bunting's remarkable career. One thing is certain. The boy from Fazakerley, who picked up his first darts in a Liverpool pub, never imagined his journey would take him to such extraordinary heights or such devastating lows. The people's champion may be gone, but Stephen "the Bullet" Bunting fights on.